Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. We're very excited to present our first crash course actually here at Stake, the first of its kind. So we're just going to take an hour today to walk you through a couple of the basics if you're looking to invest in Dubai. Today, I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Jad, who's sitting next to me today. He is the head of real estate at Stake. So Jad, if you want to... And I am Haya, a product marketing manager here at Stake as well. And joining us in the room, but his camera is not on today, is Mohammed Burhan. He is our senior client relations manager. And if you are an investor at Stake, I'm sure you've heard or gotten a call from Burhan at one point in time. And if you haven't, then you're missing out. But he will help us address some of your questions today, since we did tell you to come prepared with questions. So we're hoping that you have some juicy ones in store for us today. So we'll have a section at the end of the webinar for like 15 to 20 minutes, where we'll just go through all the questions that we've gotten. And throughout the session, Burhan will make sure to reply to as many as possible. So let's get started. So our agenda is short and sweet today, but we do have some really good stuff that we want to share with you. This webinar, I would say, is more catered to, it's actually catered to everyone. It's not whether you have a lot of experience investing in the past, or if you're new to this, if you're a novice like me, or an expert like Jad and Burhan, then you will learn a thing or two with us today. But essentially what we want to do is give you a brief overview of the real estate market in Dubai and how it's doing at this point in time. In particular, we'll be pulling some insights from the first half of the year. Second, we'll be looking at some key factors that you need to consider if you're just getting started. And again, if you are already an expert, then maybe this section will not really add too much value to you. But I think that, again, you will learn a thing or two, because there's always something to learn. And then we're going to deep dive into some property selection criteria. Jad, as our head of real estate, has a lot of experience in this, and we'll also be pulling some real life examples and use cases from factors or processes that we follow here at Stake when we acquire our own properties and list them on our platform. And then finally, we'll be wrapping up with, how Stake can support you. And one of those ways is through our newest feature, investment strategy. So we'll deep dive into that at the end of the session. And of course, we'll have a Q&A session. Okay, so as promised, we'll give you a short and sweet update on Dubai and how it's doing at this point in time. So far in 2024, we've seen the market just overperform and exceed everyone's expectations. And as you can see here on this slide, I tried to pull as many numbers as I can that I thought that might, surprise you or add a bit of value to your experience. If you're starting out as an investor, in the first half, or basically the first 6 months of this year, we've seen a record 191 billion dirhams, which is equivalent to about $50 million in just residential sales. So that is pretty impressive. And it actually goes up to 200+ billion when we consider offices and when we consider other types of sales within that bucket. But for the most part, we wanted to focus on the residential piece today. And this is actually a 38% increase from the first half of the year in 2023. And to this point, it's actually not surprising at all that we've seen residential property prices kind of hit an all-time high. And this is something that I think we anticipated a lot at the end of last year, when people were predicting how 2024 would kind of kick off in the Dubai real estate market. So it comes as no surprise to anyone who has a lot of experience in this space and in this region, that Dubai's property prices keep going up. And I think we're all feeling the burn, especially if you are living in Dubai, residing in Dubai, and you rent property, or you rent your apartment wherever you live, then you understand as well that rent prices have also gone up. And the residential market in particular, since we're focusing on that today, continue to outperform major cities like Singapore and New York, with a 2.9% growth in capital value. And as you can see on the right-hand side, this graph is it's pretty old, but it's the best one that I could find that examples for you just how significant of a performance Dubai has achieved in the real estate market, but on an international level, international scale. As you can see, we've come in third place, compared to actually followed by Iceland and Croatia and Bulgaria, which again, you wouldn't assume that these real estate markets are that big or that popular compared to the likes of Singapore and New York, that are further down in the graph. But for the most part, Dubai comes in third place, and you can see that it's one of the strongest performers globally since 2020. So that kind of, I hope, gives you some reassurance that we are on the right track and that Dubai real estate has always come out on top. And I just want to end with one final note that we've seen an influx of high net worth individuals come to Dubai since the COVID pandemic ended. And that's mainly due to many, many factors. One of them being how the government handled how it handled the post-COVID pandemic, and just as well taking into consideration the Golden Visa initiative, which really sort of opened the doors and the floodgates for people with a lot of money to spend, who want to invest, to flock to Dubai and call Dubai their home. So that also gives us some idea of how much of a reputation Dubai has built for itself over the past few years, since 2020, but even before that. But it's mainly since 2020, since that was the inflection point for us as well in the market. But it's also just important for us to take that into consideration, since obviously the more demand you have, and with the limited supply that we are seeing in the market today, prices will continue to go up. Now, before you invest, there is some consideration that we think you should give to a certain number of factors. Now, this is not exhaustive at all. It's not exhaustive list, and I'm sure that maybe you can come up with a few extra points that are missing on this slide. But for the most part, we narrowed it down to a couple of things. So the first is market trends, which is exactly sort of like a very short summary that I just shared with you. And I think honestly just barely scratches the surface, but for the sake of time, we wanted to keep it short so that we can dwell on more on the points that we're going to talk about later. And I think it's all about really doing your research at this point, at this stage specifically, just going out, reading, speaking to people, listening to the news, even like subscribing to our newsletter is a really good way to start, because we actually every 2 weeks release a newsletter with as much, it's just action packed, and we try to include as many insights as possible about what's going on in the market to keep you updated with the real-time happenings. So market trends and educating yourself about how the market is doing and performing is super important. At least from my experience, I know that as well. And we do that internally at Stake so that we can be able to continue to educate you and even educate ourselves on what are the best practices in the industry and how we can continue to deliver the best experience for you when you invest with us. Second of all, and this is in no particular order, by the way, so anything can come first or last, but what we accounted for as well is your personal financial health or your financial status at this point in time. Can you afford investing or buying a property for yourself? And that's just, a personal question that I think each of us will answer individually. And it's really just about how much you can afford right now. Would you be willing to take out a mortgage? Are you willing to go into debt to pay for the property that you have your eye on? So it's just a very personal conversation to have with yourself, but also it's about looking at obviously what your budget is and what your numbers are, and maybe just putting it in a spreadsheet and seeing it come to life visually, so that you can make a healthy decision and not just rush into it without making just having all the information that you need. And then third of all, we thought about, there's also a sense of just taking into account your rationale, right? So like, why are you investing? Why are you buying a property? Do you want to live in it? Do you want to rent it out? Do you want to flip it? It really depends. And you have a lot of different reasons here and rationales, which is, again, a very personal conversation to have with yourself, with your partner, with your family, with whoever you think you should involve in this purchase or in this investment. Because investing is, it's not an easy thing. And typically taking Stake outside of the picture, because we do offer that fractional experience. When you purchase or invest in a property yourself, that's a huge investment. That's a huge amount of capital going into one single property. So there's a lot riding on it. So you really need to reflect and think about why you're doing it in the first place in order for you to make an informed decision. So it's not just about where you are personally from a financial point of view, but it's where you are personally in your life right now. Is this a wise decision? Is this a wise investment to make or not? And then we followed that up with your future goals. So like, is this, an investment you want to make more money out of, especially if you're going to rent it out? Or are you doing it for the rental income that's going to come from that? Are you investing for retirement? So is this, a property that you're going to rent out and just use that money that comes in into your bank account every month to save and invest then again and just benefit from the compound returns so that when you retire, you have that safety net or that nest egg? Are you doing this for your family's future? Maybe you're a father who's purchasing a property for his kids, or you are a partner. You and your partner are deciding to buy this together, or you're just deciding to buy it for your own personal use. So there's a lot of different, and I think this goes hand in hand with everything I just mentioned. So personal finance, health, your why and future goals really tie in together. And they're very much interchangeable. It's just different ways of saying it, but just making sure that you do account for what your goals are is also pretty important when you decide to invest in something as big as a property. And of course, excuse me, when we think about timing the market, this is where, I feel like such a golden question that a lot of people tend to ask themselves before they make any investment of any kind. It's really like, also you hear it a lot when people want to invest in stocks, not just when they want to invest in real estate, they're always asking themselves, like, is now the right time? And I think I've also personally, from personal experience, because I do invest in stocks actively, I've seen that, there are so many ups and downs, and it fluctuates in an insane way. Like if you have experience with stocks, you understand that. So timing the market really is a pretty challenging thing. And it's also really tricky. So we decided to just run a very short, quick poll for all of you here today. So you'll see on your screen just now, you'll see the question appear. Just mark yes or no. I'm very interested to see what you guys say. Okay, I love the answers that are coming in. I'll give you guys a few minutes. Brilliant. So 82% of you answered yes. And I love that because it is true. Like now is the right time. Like, why not? As we've seen, like you've seen what I just explained about the Dubai real estate market, it's performing pretty well. And people think, it's going to continue being on the up and up. But the real part of this is that, is that there is no right time to invest. At the end of the day, every day is the right time to invest. And like today is the right time to start. So there's really no secret sauce to any of this. It's just you making those personal decisions and thinking about where you are in your life. And again, doing your research about the market to decide that whether now or not now is the right time to invest. So there's a concept that we hear a lot as investors and as people who are doing their research about investing: timing the market versus timing in the market. So a lot of people tend to wait for the perfect time to invest, but the truth is there really is no perfect moment. Ultimately, it's all about, again, where you are and whether or not that resonates with you. And the sooner you invest, the longer time that you give for your savings and for your money to grow and for your capital to grow through compound interest, dollar cost averaging, appreciation. So the sooner you start, the better. And I've spoken to hundreds, dozens of investors who tell me, I wish I could have started when I was 20. I wish I could have started when I was 18. So it's really very personal how it happens. And not everyone starts at the same time. Not everyone has this advantage. It's also very much an advantage at the end of the day, whether or not you have a specific amount of money that you're willing to invest at the end of the month or not. So again, it's very personal. And Einstein once said, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. So, and he said it for a good reason. So if you start now and you start today, and you can start as simply as with stocks or even with stake, that's the whole point of why we started the business in the first place. You let us do the heavy lifting and let your money do the work while you're just, sitting back, relaxed, making sure, you're kind of in that headspace that your money is working for you. And that could be uncomfortable. You're going to see fluctuations. You're going to see your money. You're going to lose money. It's inevitable because investing has risk. But at the end of the day, the long-term gains are just going to outweigh the short-term losses. And then, of course, we're going back to that rationale piece, right? So what's your why? Is it to generate rental income? Do you want to prepare for your retirement from now? Are you looking to build long-term wealth? Perhaps you want to diversify beyond stocks if you're a stock investor, or if you invest in bonds, or if you want to, just create more more ways for you to build passive income. So your personal goals and your life today and your life stages heavily influence your strategy and how you make decisions. And finally, before I pass the torch to Jad, it's also about budgeting. So you have a plan, right? And it also very much depends on your financial health. So the budget that I have for investing is very different than Jad's budget, very different than Burhan's budget. So it's very personal process, and it starts with just like solid research and you putting in the work to see like how much you're willing to spend at the end of every month or at the beginning of every month in order for you to dedicate just to whether it be your stocks, to your stock portfolio, your property portfolio, and etc. So it's really a personal choice at the end of the day. And maybe you consider that you shouldn't overextend yourself. Like a smart, balanced approach is just as good as one that's like high risk and like high really intense, and you're investing a crazy amount of money into something and you're getting crazy returns. Like sometimes, and take this as a rule, that anything that sounds too good to be true probably is. So just take that into consideration. And I've seen so many people who have lost their life savings because they invested in something that they thought was too good to be true, and they had seen like insane returns come out of it. So just be smart, protect yourself, do your research, ask around. And I know, and I realize that this tends to be a taboo topic that people don't tend to bring up, especially within inner circles or with friends, with colleagues. But really, maybe you should get comfortable with talking about it. Like it starts with you. It starts with one person who just gets comfortable talking about investing and talking about finance and talking about, financial health and how to manage your money. So if you have questions, don't be afraid to ask. And, you have financial advisors for a reason. You have the stake team for a reason. You can reach out to us anytime and ask us, anything that you feel like you need more clarity on. You can also ask ChatGPT. I mean, like that's why, use AI to your advantage. Why not? And if you're thinking of budgeting, maybe you can benefit from the 50-30-20 rule. It's one of my personal favorite frameworks. So basically you are splitting your income in 50-30-20. So 50% goes to your needs, 30% goes to your investments and your savings plans or whatever, and 20% for your wants. Actually, 30% for your wants, but I'd switch that personally. I'd say 20% for wants and 30% for savings, because I know that long-term me would thank me. But that's where investing comes in, right? It's, again, very personal choice. I'm reiterating that time and again because it doesn't look the same for everybody. So now it's Jad's turn to walk you through this. So I'll mute myself and pass the torch.
Hi, everybody. So let's talk first things first, right? What are the considerations that we have? What are the different criteria that you should think about when you're looking at a property investment, right? What's your budget? How much money have you put aside, or how much money do you want to spend on a property? Obviously, this is very dependent on the market and dependent on what you want to buy, and we'll get into more criteria in a second. But let's set this as a starting point. Do I want to buy a property for 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, or 500,000 dirhams? We set that first, and then we look at our different options that are available. There's off-plan and there's ready. As you know, stake only offers properties that are ready and generating income, or can generate income, whereas in the market, you can also buy off-plan properties, and that is through developers, through different agents, properties that are currently being developed, that are being launched, and those tend to sell in record time. We get developers, big developers, that sell properties within a whole buildings within a day. So this is really hot in the market right now, and it's very attractive because you get to get in early and you can invest in an off-plan property versus a property that's ready. On the flip side, you can invest in a property that's ready, where you can start generating income right away. You can see the property and see what you're buying. We'll get more into that in a second. There's different ways for you to pay as well. So you can pay with cash, you can pay with finance. Obviously, congratulations if you have enough money saved to buy a full property outright. However, most buyers, and there's been a steady rise in the Dubai market for mortgage, interest rates are a really hot topic right now, and we have a few videos, educational videos on our socials about that. But basically, the question that we're asking here: are you buying with cash? Are you buying with finance? What's your share of cash? What's your share of finance? That also helps dictate the type and price of the property you're buying. Another question that's really important is, are you dealing with an agent or are you dealing with a developer? Some people tend to buy directly from developer. I'm talking Ahmad, Ellington, Dubai Holding, Nakhil, and so on. The list is really endless nowadays in Dubai. There's big developers, there's small ones. And it's that question that you really need to answer. Am I buying from the developers that are reputable, that are known to deliver really quality products and on time? Or am I buying for an attractive product that's from a boutique developer that just launched and so on? So it's that awareness that you need to develop. On the alternative, kind of the other option that you have is going through an agency, and you get multiple agencies, some of which we're really close in partnership with, that are really know the market and have been around the market for a while. And again, here you have some big agencies and some small ones. Some of them are specialized in different areas or different property types, and then you can really like work out a way of what you're paying and who you're paying and so on. A big one is next for real estate. Obviously, you've heard this many, many times. If you're interested in real estate, it's location, location, location. Where are you buying? Is it a new area? Is it, obviously, we're talking about Dubai here, but is it in existing established areas like your downtown Dubai, your DIFC, your Dubai Marina, and so on? Palm Jumeirah as an example as well. Or are you buying newly like launched areas under development? I'm thinking Dubai Creek Harbor, Dubai South, Dubai Hills, and so on. Some of these that I'm mentioning are actually getting more and more mature, and people that have bought there in the past, like in 2018, 2019, have really started to exit these properties at a capital appreciation. So at a realized capital appreciation or capital gain, whereas newly launched areas along the Al Qudra corridor and so on, those are all kind of in the early stages, and you're making a bet, right? The bet could come to fruition and reap juicy rewards, or it could also be risky, and that's kind of where the money is made. Finally, and a question that I'll unpack a bit in more in a second, is what's your purpose for the property? Is it an end user or an investment? Hey, I mentioned previously, like, is it something for your own investment purposes? Do you want to rent out the property and generate income from it? Do you want the rental income to pay off your finance plan for your mortgage? Or are you looking to buy a property? You've got a small family, you want to settle down in a place and just call it your home. So that's kind of the purpose of the investment. So with all these kind of thoughts and criteria to consider, let's get our ducks in a row. What do we need to look at in order to consider our return, and what return on investment are we getting? You start with your purchasing costs. So not only are you considering the property purchase price, but also any regulatory or land department fees, such as Dubai land department fees if you're buying in mainland Dubai, the agency fee, if it's considered, if it's part of the deal, unless it's waived, any, for example, insurance or fees that you need to pay on the transaction, and trustee fees if they're applicable, real estate trustee fees. So that's kind of your purchasing cost. That's how much money you need to buy this property. Then you look at your running costs. So how much money is it going to cost me to basically manage this property? Service charges are a given. You start there, and then are you doing property management yourself? Are you outsourcing it? Are you getting insurance on the property? Are you getting a maintenance budget, setting it aside every year? So the beauty, and I'll talk more about stake towards the end, but the beauty of stake is that we pre-budget these in advance, and we have preferred rates from property managers and insurance companies and so on. So kind of we minimize the costs there. But these are key considerations. Finally, how much rental income am I getting? So is this property, you'll get a lot of agents that will sell you a property and will tell you, hey, this is going to rent out for 150,000 dirhams, where in reality, the contracts and the transactions are around 120,000 dirhams. Now, For stake as well, we do our due diligence and we look at contracts that have been signed. We list a valuation with every property that we fund, and those are kind of giving you the idea of what the rental income of the property is. If the property is currently rented, then great. How much rental income is it making? And all of these factors will be able to answer the next question. How soon will I be able to realize a return on my investment? So you look at the yield. What's my running costs, what's my income, and the balance of that is basically the net yield that I'm getting on an annual basis. But then you look at real estate really, and you're looking at capital appreciation potential, and you look at the market, as we spoke about earlier, time in the market versus timing the market. When am I getting in? Am I getting in at a high or a low? Sometimes, and as you all we've seen the question being asked so many times, is the Dubai market overvalued, yes or no? But like the data really shows you we're just still on the rise, and the market has a lot of our properties in our portfolio have seen an appreciation of sometimes over 10% on a yearly basis. And we're seeing the market really boom. So how soon can I realize an ROI is really dictated by these two factors. So now that you've considered all of these, we've created this list, and this is going to be available later on YouTube for you to view over. The criteria, literally qualitative and quantitative criteria. So qualitative is like my areas, my neighborhoods, the developer, the quality of the finish, the demographic of that area. What are some key points of interest in the area? Or like, is it in the middle of nowhere? Or is there some really cool kids play areas, some nurseries, some schools? All of this will actually help boost the value of the property in the long term. Is there access to public transport? Is there infrastructure being delivered along the corridor of the property? Is there leisure and recreational activities? You see like areas like Dubai Hills, for example, where there's a park in the middle, and that really boosts the value of the area. And finally, the building condition. So how it's being managed, how it's being run by the building managers or the developers, that really shows you where if you've selected up there, the reputable developers, they really tend to look after their property, and it tends to keep good quality for a long time. Finally, the quantitative criteria that you need to consider. So how many bedrooms are we looking at in the property? What's the size in square feet? And those are kind of go hand in hand. You might get a really small one bed or a really large studio, and all of that like dictates how you're renting it and what's the quality of the building. Would you want to live in it again, or is it something that you're leasing? Is the property rented? How much rent is it making, as we discussed just now? Is it furnished? Am I buying it with furniture? In case it is, what's the quality and status of the furniture? What's the view? What's the floor? You might get a really nice property in a really nice building, but it's on a low floor and it's facing another building. That's not ideal. Whereas if you get a property on a really high floor with a view of the skyline or whatever, then you're really increasing your property value. Now, as we mentioned, you consider service charges, and that's exactly like the facts and figures of how much am I paying, and the maintenance costs. If the property is in good shape, yes or no, or is there a leak? Am I going to have to pay a few thousand dirhams to fix it, and so on. Yep. And now we really talk quickly about ready versus off plan. I touched on this earlier, but basically the difference between ready versus off plan. Obviously, ready properties, you can move in or rent out the property as soon as possible. You can really start like making use of your investment. Whereas with off plan, you need to wait months or years until the construction is completed. In ready properties, since it's really ready, there's no risk of delays in construction and progress delays or supply chain disruptions and so on. Whereas in the off-plan properties, you might get labor shortages, you might have permit issues and so on, especially if the developer is not one of the big ones. They tend to take a bit longer sometimes. In the ready properties, you might tend to pay slightly higher than off-plan due to the immediate availability. However, this is really market dependent. Whereas in off-plan, you might be saving on certain fees, such as registration from the land department, or brokerage fees may be waived and so on. So you're actually saving in your all-in cost. In ready properties, what you see is what you get. So you can have a look at the property. If you feel like you can renovate the property, you can budget for that, but you really are able to see. Whereas in off-plan projects, the floor plans and brochures may not always match the final product, or they may, but then you don't really view it in advance. Finally, for investment properties, if they're ready, they can be rented out, as we said, immediately, and you start getting your income. In off-plan projects, depending on where you are and basically selecting your area properly, if there's a potential and you're buying really early on, like the examples we gave earlier in Dubai Hills and people that bought like over 5 years ago, they bought off-plan and now they're able to sell in some cases for over 50% gain on their investment. Great. So these are some questions to ask you yourself if you are choosing ready or off plan. Do you want immediate possession or rental income? Do you want a low risk investment with a clear understanding of the quality so you're able to visit? And you want access to financing options like mortgages and so on right away. And this is the reason to choose ready. However, if you want to choose off-plan projects, you're looking at lower initial costs and flexible payment plans. In some cases, the developers will give you milestone payments. All of this is done in a secure manner with the Dubai Land Department and RERA, the regulatory agency. And you are choosing off-plan if you're able to handle longer wait times and you're looking at more risk for a gain. So they have their disadvantages and advantages. Each one has its own, and the right choice really depends on you. But we try to paint as clear a picture as possible. I'll pass back to Haya to talk you through the next steps.
Thank you, Jad. I hope you found that helpful and a little bit interesting, especially if you're still looking in the market, you're looking at potential opportunities in the market, you're not sure which one resonates with you most. But for the most part, if you feel like you are not ready to buy or invest on your own, then stake is the right solution for you. And I know that seems like, you know, such a pitch or like, oh, she's selling stake to us today. But honestly, our platform was founded for one reason only: to empower everyone, no matter who they are, to own and build their wealth through real estate. So I'm already at a loss for words when I say this, but there are so many different value propositions that we have as a business. And one of the main ones, and you've already kind of seen it in action with Jad, is our expertise. So we have a team of professionals, over 50 people who work day in, day out, sometimes even on the weekends, mostly on the weekends, to make sure that the experience that you get on stake is, you know, 5-star experience, 10-star experience, world class. And the opportunities that you see that go live and that get funded in minutes are actually acquired by Jad and his team. Again, in real time, every single day, they go out, they scour the market, they look at opportunities. So it's very much a hands-on process on our end to make sure that it's as hands-off for you as possible, where you don't need to worry about any of this. We go out, we source the properties, we make sure that you get access to the best opportunities the market has to offer. And you don't even have to lift a finger except to press the investment button. And of course, you can start small and you can then just grow your portfolio as you go and as you get more comfortable or get more familiar with the process. And we understand that a lot of people tend to be more comfortable when they start small. And you can start with as low as 500 dirhams. It's really that simple, which is about $136. And then you can build your way up if you feel comfortable to do so. And our client relations team is always on, like, all hands on deck. Our CX team is all hands on deck to make sure that we can address as many questions as you have, to get you as familiar as possible with, again, our process, the way things work, to get you familiar with if there are any, like, the costs and what to make sense of the financials, because sometimes that stuff may seem complicated to a novice investor, but at the end of the day, that is all explainable, that is all learnable, and it's all figure outable. So it's really just something that we are also something we preach internally, that we want to educate, we want to empower our investors, and we want them to feel comfortable. We want them to know what they're investing in. So that's why you'll see now, if you press on any property that's currently live, you will literally scroll. Sometimes it feels like you're scrolling endlessly, but for a good reason. Like, you're seeing every aspect is taken into consideration. The financials, the developer on the project, giving you insight on the developer, making sure that you see the breakdown in, like, literally detail by detail, where no detail has been missed. And we continue to iterate on that experience because we get feedback from you every day. Now, it's not just that, but the whole selling point of stake as well is that you get to diversify. So what we're talking about today is you're buying or investing in a single property, but ultimately that's not, you know, especially when you have the capacity at this point in your life to only purchase a single opportunity, that's perfectly fine. But if you are looking to afford and build a bigger portfolio, then you have that diversification opportunity with stake. You can spread your capital, your investment across multiple properties, across multiple areas in Dubai, some of the best, over 20 areas, and Jad will walk you through them in a second, so that you can reduce your risk and you are basically maximizing your returns. And of course, we are a regulated business. So we're a regulated business, we're Sharia compliant. I know a lot of you had questions about this, but we are Sharia compliant. You can read more about that in our Sharia certificate on our website, but we are regulated by the Dubai Financial Services Authority. And we, you know, strive to ensure perfectly secure, 100% transparent investment experience for you, end to end. And finally, you know, one of the main reasons why, you know, real estate tends to be a bit of a question mark for especially new investors or people who are looking to buy in real estate, it's very hard to liquidate. And we are solving for that with two exit strategies that we offer. The first is exit windows, which is a bi-yearly 2-week period. So basically it happens two times a year for 2 weeks at a time. And all our investors on the platform can participate as long as they meet minimum requirements. You can read more about that again on our website or in our FAQ section, or even ask us in the Q&A box if you want to learn more. But basically, this exit window provides an opportunity for people who want to buy shares at a discount. So in previously funded properties that you wanted to buy into, but you couldn't, you wanted to invest in, but they funded so quickly. So these properties tend to go live in the exit window again. And also, if you are looking to liquidate, you can. And there's a whole process behind that. You can actually open up Stake Academy from your mobile application, Stake. You open it up from your profile, or there are different entry points in the app. Actually, it's sprinkled all across the experience. But for the most part, you can just click on your profile and access Stake Academy and watch our Chief Product Tech Officer explain those different exit strategies that we offer. It's a really interesting short video if you want to learn more. And actually, we have our 4th exit window coming up in November. So we're not too far away. Jad, I think you can explain this part.
So we are very selective in which properties we offer. We obviously list and we learn and we offer and we really observe the market as much as possible. We launched a few new areas recently, and I'm sure you've seen that. We actually haven't updated this as of 20 minutes ago, but we just funded our first property in a new area called Al Barari, if you've heard of it. But overall, we've listed 22 neighborhoods, actually 23 now. And that's a map of Dubai to show you where they are, the real hotspots and the ones we repeatedly do, and where I would say 70% of our portfolio is between downtown, DIFC, Business Bay, Dubai Marina, and JLT. We've recently seen a major uptick in Mohammed bin Rashid City, so Shoba Heartland and the area there, in Dubai Hills, Jumeirah Village Circle, but we are quite selective with the buildings that we list there. We've ventured into new areas and rising areas like Jumeirah Golf Estate, Al Ghaf, Arabian Ranches 3, and so on. So it's really selected, curated, freehold areas around Dubai.
Thank you, Jad. I know that we are slowly running out of time because we want to leave 15 or 10 to 15 minutes for you guys for us, me and Jad, to answer your questions. But Han has been really hard at work throughout the entire session, addressing as many questions as he can. But the whole point of why we're here today is actually to introduce you to our new investment strategies. So about a month and a half ago, we released investment strategies in the app. And this is basically a new label that you'll see on almost every property, I believe, will have a strategy attached to it, whether it be capital growth, balanced, or high yield. These are 100% expert backed, again, by Jad and his team, who decide which property belongs under which strategy. And they are the ones who have curated these strategies from the very beginning. And we were really selective about this. There was a lot of research that went behind this, a lot of back and forth internally as a team across different functions for us to basically land on these 3 options. And these three options are designed to grant you a chance to, cut through the noise, make informed investment decisions, because ultimately because investing is a very personal process, right? That's why I stressed on it as much as I can in the early part of the presentation. So what you're looking for out of your investment is very different from what I'm looking for out of my investment, or what Jad's looking for out of his investment. So it's very personal between person to person. And what that looks like is maybe my strategy is different. What I'm looking to make more a higher yield. You care more about capital appreciation because you're looking for that. You have that long-term view. I don't. I'm more of a short-term thinker. So I can cut through the noise and look at only the high yield properties or only the balanced properties. So it goes on and on. And we actually have a fourth one coming up, but I'm not going to go into details. And of course, you can also align your expectations with the opportunity. So if again, it depends on what you're looking for, and you can save time, you can save effort assessing which property is right for you, because again, you have all the details that you need to make an informed decision. But ultimately, if you want to just base it off of which investment strategy speaks to you most, then you can. And now Jad will walk you through each strategy in detail very quickly so that we can answer your questions.
Thank you, Haya. So 3 strategies are live, and I just want to kind of preface this with, yes, every property that's listed on Stake for the past, I think, close to a month has had an investment strategy tied to it. Every property listed on Stake, and we've had people ask this question, what can I do to visit the property or kind of see it? And we list every property with a 3D tour, a virtual tour powered by Matterport. We list it with really professional pictures, an investment memorandum to kind of take you into the investment reasoning and what's going on in the leasing strategy of the property. But now we really wanted to bring forward more of this information, and that's why we launched these investment strategies. So I'll start with my favorite. I'm not normally allowed to say that, but I think balanced is the safest. I like to play my investments safe. Balanced is geared towards safe, established neighborhoods where you are bound to get a capital appreciation over the long course. We always list the property and say the average or targeted hold period is 5 years. And we'll answer more about that later in the Q&A. But the idea is these areas, if the market was to ever take a downturn, these areas will be impacted the least because you have a really specific persona in those areas. Like and I've mentioned them previously on the webinar. It's areas that are really well established, and they have constant high demand in terms of renting and facilities and attractions and so on. Next up is a really exciting, and a few people on the team are actually very, very enthusiastic about this strategy. It's the capital growth strategy. And I may have mentioned earlier that we just listed and funded a property in Baradi. It was funded in just 3 hours, and it's a capital growth play. You're literally taking a bet on an area that's going to rise in value over the next few years. It's your Dubai South, your Creek Harbors, your MBR City, your Dubai Hills, areas that have been launched recently by developers that are backed by the government with some infrastructure projects. So your kind of infrastructure developments along the key corridors in the city and so on. So those are areas that potentially might have a lower rental income and a lower yield, but with time, you could potentially double your money if it's the right time and the right investment. So yeah, these areas are all very exciting, and we're looking to launch more of those very soon. Finally, the third investment strategy that's currently live. I know a lot of our investors are very keen on this and wait for those properties. Those are areas that offer really attractive rental incomes where the prices really haven't picked up that drastically in terms of sales prices. That's your Jumeirah Village Circles, your Jumeirah Lake Towers, Arjan, Dubai Studio City, where the price ratio to rental income is actually quite favorable, and you get a really high yield. So a property that's priced reasonably in those areas within the market value gets an income that's quite high compared with the transaction price, and then you get a really favorable yield and you make decent amount of returns on a monthly basis as we pay you your rent. So now we're going to switch over to answering some questions. I think one of the most pressing questions, or we've been asked this about KSA. Stay tuned to our socials. Stay tuned to what we're hopefully going to be announcing very soon. There will be a separate webinar to go take you through KSA. So we're not going to address KSA, otherwise it's going to take the rest of the time slot. I have mentioned earlier about so how we list properties. One question that is repeatedly comes up is who does the valuation of the properties. We appoint third-party companies that are licensed by the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors in the UK. It's a regulator based in London, and they regulate like the way valuations are done. So we typically do evaluation for every single property before it's listed. And that way, you know, you're buying at or below the market value of that property. We also do, as I mentioned, a 3D tour and a virtual, basically pictures and all the documentation for the property. So another question is this app legitimate? Is there any security to the investment through the stake app if we will not, as a team, run away in the future? That's a great question, and thank you for the question. Basically, what we do for every property, once the property is funded, let's say a property is listed, the investment value is 1 million dirhams, and it has 200 investors, right? Different shares, each one. When the property is fully funded and fully subscribed, basically, we go and set up a special purpose vehicle in the DIFC, where these 200 investors are shareholders. Collectively, they'll own 1 million dirhams, which is the investment value. And the SPV, the special purpose vehicle, will have its own documentation, its own commercial license, and it's external, completely external to stake. We're heavily regulated by the Dubai Financial Services Authority. And if I may say, they're one of the strictest and most trusted regulators in the region. So that's one of the main reasons why we associate with them. The investments are external to stake. You get your title deed when the property transfer of ownership is done to the SPV. In the SPV name, you'll get a share certificate that is signed, that shows how many shares you own in that property, and then you receive those documents. They're saved on the app, and you're able to view the register of shareholders on the DIFC registrar website.
I can take something. Okay, I'm just digging through the questions. I think Barhan's answering this one. I think you can, I can read it out if you'd like, because it's a pretty deep question and you can answer it. Given your current, so this is from Saduhan, given your current focus on prime locations and capital growth strategies, when do you plan to expand your offerings to include more income generating properties like hospitals, student housing, and hotels through fractional ownership?
Thank you for the question. So we did see, obviously, Burhan answered already this question a few times. Is there, and this is basically what it boils down to, is commercial property coming to stake the platform in Dubai? And the answer is we are working on it with the regulator. Obviously, a regulator currently only allows properties that are ready, that are handed over, no off-plan properties, no commercial assets such as hospitals, such as hotels, just yet on the platform. Hopefully this will come soon, but obviously we're working on it with the regulator to offer this. The reason being, it's a different risk, it's a different asset class. And for the retail investors, the DFSA really wants to protect the retail investor interest. So that's basically why we haven't launched that yet, but hopefully very soon. And there's another question, and I'll tie both of these together. So can the share be mortgaged? Can basically we balance the rewards between owning a full ownership property, like a traditional single asset investment and so on. The answer is it's a cash investment. You fund your wallet. If you're a retail investor, you fund your wallet with a debit card or a bank transfer, and you own the share. It's cash. It's to manage your risk and basically to make sure the investment is secure. If you're a professional investor, that means you can invest using a credit card, but you have to be qualified as a professional investor. And you can reach out to our client relations team. They will be more than happy to assist you do that.
Okay. These questions are hyper specific, and I think I'll just read them out so Jad can answer them because he's the pro when it comes to the property specific ones. There's not really anything about the stake experience. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A. This is a good one. Maybe I can take this and I'll pass on to you. Any near future plan to increase the limit for retail investors? So this is a very good question, and we actually just recently got approval from our regulator, the DFSA, that we could double the retail limit. So it was $50,000 initially per year, and then it was increased to $100,000. So now it's currently $100,000 for every investor. Obviously, retail investors, professional investors, it's the rules are different. So for the time being, our understanding is that it will remain at $100,000, but we're hoping that the number will go up because we know our investors want to invest more and build up their portfolios, and maybe to them $100,000 is not enough. But this is a yearly figure. So if you've reached or maxed out your limit this year, then you can max it out again next year.
There's a couple of questions that I'll answer from Mazen, and I lost the other one, but I'll answer it anyway. Off-plan investing and oversupply on the market. We actually had a slide about this at the beginning, but in the interest of time, we cut it out. I don't know if you've heard of the Dubai 2040 plan. There's really high targets. I don't remember the population number, but I think it's in the range of 10 million. So there's really kind of government backing into this and making sure the market, like Dubai, becomes a self-sustaining city in terms of it not needing to rely on external cities. And obviously, like I've been in Dubai for, so close to 10 million. Thanks, Haya. I've been in Dubai personally for over 20 years. I grew up here and I've seen the city transform. If anyone's familiar with the Dubai market, I lived like down the trade center for a few years, or maybe for a year. And it was literally nowhere, like the middle of nowhere. There was nothing in Dubai. And we've seen how Sheikh Zayed Road has boomed, how the downtown areas have boomed and so on. And a lot of people said when those developments were coming up, those are going to be ghost cities and so on. So the trajectory and the growth of the city and the government backing is definitely not to be taken like lightly. Obviously, we want to be very risk averse in that sense, and that's one of the reasons why we don't list off-plan properties. We make sure the properties are in crucially prime areas or areas showing really good promises and kind of grow on a growth trajectory. And another reason where we limit our risk and limit investor risk is we make sure we're working with reputable developers that we know deliver their projects on time, right? So that's the piece of advice that we have for you as well if you're buying off-plan in areas that are on the rise. One question that we have is, can I visit the property if I visit Dubai? I hope you understand that if on average, we have about 500 investors in a property, we can't get 500 investors to visit the property. And that's why we go the extra mile to do the 3D tours, to do the pictures, and to really make you see the property virtually. If you have a pair of augmented reality glasses, you can actually strap them on and visit the property virtually. But in terms of accommodating a visit to the property at this stage, it cannot be arranged. One question that we got as well is regarding the furnishing costs. So a fun fact, we typically, for smaller properties, we want to make sure we maximize rental income. So we list the property and keep a budget for furnishing. we work with select partners who are really like proven and have done over a few dozen properties each for us. It's tried and tested, and normally we're able to achieve maybe 5 to 10%, in some cases 15% over the market average for long-term rent. So we pre-budget for these costs in advance, along with all the other transactional costs, like for example, the land department fees or the broker fees and so on. And at the time of listing the property for sale, we've already sold 7 properties in our portfolio. The investors chose to sell another 6, which hopefully will happen in the next couple of months. The value that we managed to add to these properties is by furnishing them. They're being bought by people who have visited the properties and who really have been impressed by the quality of the furnishing and the quality of the work that's done by our team. So once the property is sold, it's basically sold with the furniture in it, and that helps us stage the property and secure a sale much more quickly. There's a couple of questions regarding a beneficiary, or like leaving your share in the will, in your will, God forbid someone was to pass and so on. And yeah, you definitely can. If you've invested, you can reach out to our team and they will more than assist you. They'll guide you through the process. And yeah. Hayes shared a poll with everyone. We'd love it if you can answer, and just it will help us gauge if you've invested with stake or not. I'll share the results.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to, you're asking us questions. I'm just curious about this one, because we tend to run these webinars for all our existing users on the platform, but we also are very much vocal about it on our social media. And there are a lot of outsiders who are not stake users who join us from all around the world. So I was just very curious to see, oh, it's a 50-50 split. Actually, that's so cool. I hope the ones who aren't stake investors become stake investors after this today. There was one question that I thought was really interesting. There was one I think that actually I will raise to our tech team, because they were saying that they couldn't see the flag, like which strategy is associated with that property when it was funded. Yeah, so that's one thing. Yeah, go ahead.
There's another question from Mazen. Thank you, Mazen. So we mentioned that the rent will be guaranteed by a certain date. Yes, thank you for asking that. So we launched recently a really cool feature. Do you want to talk about it? Rental guarantees. So
go ahead.
Yeah, when a property is funded on the platform, we want to make sure that we minimize your wait time to getting your first rental income. So whether that property is rented or vacant at the time of listing, we as a company want to make sure that you get your first rental income within a maximum wait of 2 months. So let's say a property gets funded today on the 25th of September. By the end of November, you should be getting your first rental income, whether the transfer of ownership has been done or not, or whether the property is rented or got rented by that date or not. So that's kind of the assurance and the guarantee that you get from our side. Another question, and this is something that we hold ourselves very accountable to. Not all properties have virtual tours attached to them. That's a very valid concern, and we share it as a team. But in some cases, the properties are rented with a tenant that really does not allow us to share their personal belongings or their personal space on our platform, although it's a regulated platform and it's only restricted to our users. But still, so that's a rare case, but when it does happen, we don't share the 3D tour, but we make sure we have pictures at least.
There's a good one.
I'll go for it.
I might even pass it back on to you, because we're actually, since we brought up exit strategies a bit earlier, so Musaddiq asked, what is the selling cycle, I believe. Maybe that's what he meant by his question, of these properties from the point they are fully funded. So we actually have two exit strategies. One of them I focused more on than the second one, but the second one is basically our full exits, and we actually have a few coming up in the pipeline. Again, all managed by Jad's team. But for the most part, our full exits is controlled by our investors to a certain extent, and also by us. So based on certain factors, whether or not the property numbers basically look a certain way. So if we've hit 30% minimum capital appreciation, then that's where it's basically triggers. It's basically note for our team to say, oh, this property is potentially eligible for an exit. Let's push a vote out to our investors. So it's not really us deciding whether or not we will execute the exit. It's really all in the hands of our investors, because it is a democracy that we're running here. So once we issue the vote, our investors will vote on it, yes or no. If it's unanimous, then we execute the sale. If the majority, then that's why I said I was going to pass it on to Sajad. But so the majority do vote on yes, then we will execute the sale. And basically our investors receive their principal amount plus the capital appreciation, and they will have already earned their second income throughout the holding period that they've already basically passed. But we've had like about 4 or 5 exits right since we've started, just upping the ante on these properties, because you can imagine like Stake is almost 3 years old, if not 4 years old now. So it makes sense that we start looking at, how we exit these properties. And a lot of the properties that we had acquired earlier have been exited, and a lot of the more recent ones as well are somewhat in the pipeline. So Jad, I'll leave the floor to you if you want to elaborate more.
No, I think that was great. Thank you, Haya. Nothing to add here, but I did see a question from Saruhan, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Forgive me if I'm not. Thank you for the question. So we've emphasized on prime locations, capital appreciation, but obviously with increasing competition, how do we differentiate our platform to secure long-term investor loyalty and initiatives that are kind of on customer retention and long-term value creation? And one thing that I would answer to that is that we are very customer focused. Customers are our biggest asset, basically, and we want to make sure that you're happy and you're satisfied. So while we start at the top of the funnel kind of and select the properties, like as a real estate team, as a team that I personally look after, we make sure we're very diligent in our selection. We make sure we do all the due diligence on a property before listing it. But then we want to make sure that long-term we're delivering on our projections, or at least making sure we're maximizing the performance of the property using like our market knowledge and our partners. We do partner up with some of the biggest property management companies in Dubai as a market. Some of the biggest leasing agencies. We've increased the number of brokerages we work with over the past year. So to make sure we are always delivering, we're constantly improving our tech and building new features for the platform. Our product and tech team is really fantastic, and they do a really good, amazing job at this. So if you've got any ideas, any features that you want to see, please reach out to our team, and then we'll try to put it in the roadmap. But one of the things that we always want to surface is like the rental status of the property, like in your investment page and so on. So a lot of that is coming hopefully in the beginning of next year, but that also helps you as an investor kind of have as much transparency as possible on your investment. I'll take one more question before passing back on to Haya, but I think we're going to have to wrap it up quickly because we're going over time. Thank you guys for your patience. So this is a great question from Abdul Hadi. Thank you, Abdul Hadi. We never shared our business model and how we make income as part of the exit percent for Stake. There is a few calculators on the app for you to use and to kind of model that out, but I will happily share. All of this that I'm sharing is available on the app. So if it's not clear or there's any question, please reach out to us. Basically, when we list a property and at the time of acquisition of the property, Stake takes an acquisition fee of 1.5% of the property value. And that's the first way we charge. The second way is we charge 0.5% of your investment on an annual basis as an admin fee. So let's say you've invested 2,000 dirhams in a property, we charge 0.5% of that on a month, like on an annual basis, divided monthly. So it's taken as a cut from your rental income. And the final way is when a property is sold, we charge 2.5% of the exit. And obviously, a couple of people have asked about this earlier. There's a performance fee for us. If we perform properly and over kind of the expectation, then we charge 7% incentive of the difference between the sale price and the investment amount minus the transaction cost. Do you want to?
I think that's all we have for you today. We try to address as many questions as possible. We actually answered over 150 questions today, which is really cool to see that you came prepared and you had really brilliant questions for us. So thank you for challenging us. But we hope that we challenged you and you had some really great takeaways from this presentation. Please rest assured that we will be publishing this video and this recording as well as this deck on YouTube, the latest tomorrow morning. So if you're interested in checking it out anytime, then you can just go on our YouTube channel and check it out there. We'll also be sending it to you by email. And that's it. That's all we have for you today. So thank you so much for joining us. We have so many webinars in store for you in the next few weeks. So stay tuned. Make sure to sign up if you're not already signed up on Stake so that you can get notified when we have these webinars coming up so you can learn more about our business and our product. And I saw so many questions from you guys about, how our product works. You want to learn more about the process. You want to see the app in action. I hear you. So we'll take that feedback to heart and we'll figure out how we can do that more, especially in the next few months, because, we're with Saudi right around the corner. It's coming very soon. Hopefully, we'll be increasing the amount of content we produce on that front. So you'll be fully informed before you invest, fully informed if you are already an investor, so you can learn what's new on the product. So this is just one of the ways in which we want to keep you, empowered and educated. So I hope that we helped you. So thank you so much for sticking with us, even 10, 15 minutes over time. Thank you so much, Burhan and Jad, for your time. And I hope I'll see you in the next webinar. Bye, guys.